Race baiting and fear mongering was a big part of her tactic tonight.
Part of Kamala's tactic?
Yes, Kamala's tactic.
Okay. What in particular would you remember about that?
Especially when she brought up the Central Park Five. I think that's a hot button issue, especially for a lot of African Americans, but she leaves out a lot of specifics to that. Like the lead prosecutor was a Democrat at the time. Back then, Donald Trump was also a Democrat. He wasn't always a Republican. And he was praised heavily in a good way for taking out that ad in the paper because a lot of people did think that they were guilty. So a lot of people that were against Trump now were once a big fan of his, and I think he was gaslit during the entire debate, and that was probably why he was so defensive. And even when he brought up the topic of race, he brought that up because she's pandering. She's using being black as a trope to get the black vote, I'm sorry. But instead of her leaning into it, I would have liked to see her lean into the fact that, yes, I am a black woman, and this is my plan for black America, but she clearly doesn't have a plan because she's essentially not black. But she used that as a moment to paint him as a racist.
How you doing, Mayor Johnson? My name is Suwani, and I want to know, why did you give all the migrants all the fun when people out here suffering with their kids, homeless? Like me, I am disabled. I cannot pay my rent. The landlord is trying to evict me out of my house with my kids. I've been calling down here telling complaints about what's going on in my building. People been getting stabbed, everything in my building. I have 2 disabled kids, and I'm very struggling paying my rent. And I've been making complaints about the building. All I get, closed, case is closed, case is closed. I can't get no help to get out the building. I've been talking to Jeanette Taylor about what's going on in the building. I cannot get no help to get out that building with my kids. I'm living around drugs head, crack heads with my kids, and I have 2 disabled kids. I don't understand you. Then you gave the migrants all that funds, and they walk around up and down King Drive selling stuff when other people need stuff too. I don't understand you. You gave them that fund. They over there selling drugs and everything over there on King Drive. They over there stealing out the stores and everything. Stealing out stores that we need in the community. You sitting up and gave them migrants all that fun with people sleeping on the streets. You wrong for that. You need some help.
Kamala Harris's appeal for the black male vote is insulting and patronizing. She summons Obama from his mansion on Martha's Vineyards to shame black men into voting for her. Instead of an economic agenda that she talks to white groups, that she offers Beyonce and the legalization of marijuana.
I don't know why I felt compelled to make this video. I don't know, maybe because the election's coming down, 4 days to go at the time of me making this video. And for some reason, I kept thinking about Chicago, Black America, and all this stuff. And I think I'll call this video my final pitch to Black America and why I think they should vote for Trump. I believe, as a middle ground, as you guys know, I'm conservative. I prefer the Republican Party. And what I'm asking from Black America is not loyalty to the Republican Party. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that, I believe that Black America should be by default, should not be loyal to the Democratic Party. I'm saying black voters should be by default swing voters. That is my, I guess, compromise or my middle ground. I would prefer y'all to be like me, Republican, but I don't care. All I care about is political parallelism, like 60-40. That's all I really care about in the black community. I don't care if the black community is still loyal to the Democratic Party. It's just we can't be loyal to the Democratic Party at 90%. Right? And before I get the comments about both sides, all this stuff, Democrats are the lessers of the two evil, that's a lie, and that's a damn lie made in hell. Because I know and you know that the Democrats are literally putting illegal immigrants over the needs of Black America. Right. And this photo, if you're an American watching this, of any, regardless of your ethnic background, your religion, your sexual orientation, this hurts you. Biden-Harris administration illegal immigration numbers are 25% higher than reported, studies show. And the reason why I opened up with the Chicago incident, because Chicago is something I've been following very closely. In this video, I talked about how Venezuelan illegals are gang affiliated and they're causing, there's a threat of a gang war about to happen in Chicago, right? I talk about how in Chicago, they're giving $400 million to illegal aliens while American citizens suffer. Now they're raising property taxes on Americans to pay for the Democrats' open border policies. This is what Kamala Harris has done to our country. Never Kamala. If you look at the policy outcomes that Harris is pushing, it does not benefit you as a people. Logically, there's no logical explanation you can justify voting for Kamala Harris. Black liberal women are going behind Kamala Harris because they want the symbolism, they want histrionics, they care about optics more than they care about results and reality. They talk about we're not going back. We currently have a Democrat administration. If you vote for Kamala Harris, you are going back, right? And this is a message to all Americans. But specifically, I want to highlight how Black Americans, you've been led astray. I'm sorry. When you got a media apparatus like the mainstream media, that its sole job is to demonize Donald Trump. 87% of the news coverage, according to the Media Research Center, 87% of news coverage is negative coverage of Donald Trump. And you think you're not being misled? And this is why I try to tell my mom. I told my mom, all you watch is CNN, all you watch is MSNBC. I know. And you've been conditioned to be revolted by Fox News, when in reality, Fox News is just a different framing of events. And you only believe these people's framing of events. It's like listening to an abuser telling you that no one else loves you and that you shouldn't even try to go to anyone else. You only can stay with the abuser. This is the mainstream media. And we all know it. But we've been conditioned, Democrats are for the Black people. Is having 25% higher illegal immigration numbers for the Black people? Is transitioning your kids to another gender with gender reassignment surgery for Black people, when majority of these kids will grow out of gender dysphoria as long as they hit puberty? Make it make sense. But I'm morally irrehensible. I'm morally indefensible for voting for Donald Trump. For Donald Trump, according to people like Mark Lamont Hill, I'm deplorable.
These are deplorable people. Anyone in 2024 that is willing to vote for Donald Trump is deplorable.
So voting for gender reassignment surgery is not deplorable. Insulting half the country as garbage is not deplorable. Mark Cuban, I just finished doing a video on him, telling that women who vote for Donald Trump are weak and dumb. That's not deplorable. I'm tired of this fake lecturing from the Democratic Party. And I think Black America could send a significant message. If I just need 20% of y'all, 25% of y'all vote for Donald Trump. Just to teach Democrats a lesson saying, hey, this is what you get for looking down on us. I already told you, Donald Trump's a protest vote. And for all my Americans out there, for all the other Americans, I will leave this clip with you, with Rob Snyder, and he articulated perfectly the timeline and what Trump actually represents.
Sent me that I thought encapsulated another important missed opportunity here.
I'm Rob Schneider. Instagram says, Kamala Harris says we're not going back, and she and the Democrats don't want to go back, but Americans want to go back. Americans want to go back to our country and our cities that are not being overrun with 20 million undocumented immigrants, flooding our country with fentanyl that kills 65,000 Americans each year. Our country wants to go back to where girls don't have to share the sports fields and girls' locker rooms with narcissistic failed male athletes. We want to go back to where 14-year-old children are not allowed to have their bodies surgically mutilated or take repurposed castration drugs, falsely named puberty blockers, through this gender madness, to go back to a government that doesn't violate Americans' First Amendment rights to free speech like the Biden-Harris regime did, working with tech companies to censor and silence Americans, where federal workers and soldiers are not fired for refusing to take an experimental gene therapy. Yes, Americans want to go back to not having forever wars and giving hundreds of billions of US dollars to Ukraine, to go back to not pushing the world to a nuclear war with Russia, to go back to free speech being our Constitution right. Not what Kamala Harris describes as a privilege, Yes, Americans want to go back where inflation is not 26%, where they can afford groceries and gas and one day be able to afford a home again. Americans want to go back to a government that doesn't tell them what kind of car they can drive or what kind of stove they can use. A country where their leaders don't call them deplorables or systemically racist because of the color of their skin. Yes, Kamala, Americans want to go back to a society that isn't another Marxist failure, to a country that they love more than the Democrats hate Donald J. Trump, to go back to a free America founded under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's why I'm voting for the ticket that has Donald J. Trump, J.D. Vance, Robert Kennedy, and Tulsi Gabbard on it. Let's go back to the greatest experiment in freedom the world has ever known, the United States of America. God bless America. Love, Rob Schneider.
So
a great little screed.
Yeah, it's a great little screed. And, again, it's sort of a timeline that we're not on, where the point was, we're not going back is a very powerful slogan until you actually think about it. And then the point is actually a tremendous amount has gone wrong. And back to where exactly? Because there's an awful lot that...
Is there nothing that we have lived through that has been awesome? Really? You don't want to go back to any of that?
To any of that, right. And so really, it's an empty slogan at best, or a veiled reference to the one and only issue, or whatever it is.
I mean, no one can say it better than that perfectly illustrates the timeline. Like, yo, not going back is so vague and subjective. Like, what are you talking about there? And this is where it goes to the point that I mentioned in, I think, my last video with Mark Cuban about this word salad that she gets accused of. We're not going back. Okay, like, make that clearer. That's too vague. It's like my wife sometimes when she tells me, oh, can you get the thing over there? I'm like, what thing? What is the thing you're talking about? It's just it's like asking, what is they? Like, who is they? It's the same thing. You're trying to make me assume something with your statements when you could be meaning something completely different. It reminds me of Hillary Clinton in 2016. You have a public policy and you have a private policy. And her saying we're not going back is the public policy. But what's the private policy? I'm just going to do the same thing as Joe Biden currently doing, that currently majority of Americans don't agree with, right? And I just want to point this out because this is my pitch. Like, I'm not trying to do too much clips. I'm not trying to do too much stuff, but I'm just trying to highlight something to the American people and people who just still on the fence about Donald Trump. Biden-Harris administration alters transcript of Biden's garbage insults could have broken the law. Like, these dudes are breaking laws. Like, if someone's willing to break the law, what makes you think they're not willing to lie to you about stuff, right? 90% of Americans only want U.S. citizens voting in American elections. Which party is currently fighting to keep non-citizens in the election roll? Democrats. But voting for Republicans is not in black people's interest. Voting for Donald Trump, it makes you a deplorable, garbage human being. Looking out for your own best interest makes you a Nazi. All of this is according to the Democratic Party. The same Democratic Party that have the media on lock, right? And I just want to highlight something here with RFK, and then I'll wrap up this video because I don't want to be too long. He's going to talk about how he had an off-the-record conversation with someone from CBS, and I found it very insightful, and it illustrates exactly what we're seeing in the mainstream media. Let's take a look.
And somebody called me one of the anchors of ABC today, and I had an off-the-record discussion with him. And he said, there's so much division in this country. And I said, that's because you're causing it. My nephew, who's traveled with me for 19 months, he's my wife Cheryl's nephew. And he's been working for me for 19 months and traveled everywhere with me. And he's met President Trump many times now. And he said to me today, he said, everybody who's met President Trump loves President Trump. He said, you can't help but love him. So why does half of America hate him?
And this is my biggest argument to black people. My mother, if she ever watches this video, my biggest question is like, how can you hate a man so much that you have never personally met? Like, what Donald Trump personally done to you, Mom? Like, this is questions I ask my mom. Like, why you don't like this guy so much? Oh, because of what someone else say about him. Like, make it make sense. Like imagine two friends, they had a falling out, and you only listen to one friend about the other one. And now you have a negative perception of the other one. But I'm like, have you ever talked to the other friend that got that fell out of the group? No, but Cheryl said all these things about her, so it must be true. That's what you're doing with the mainstream media about Donald Trump. That's why, like, as a Trump, I go, hey, yo, do your own research. Look at the policies. Don't listen to these people saying, oh, people who are voting against Kamala Harris, black men that are voting against Kamala Harris are only doing so because of sexism, idiocy, dumb foolery. I'm dumbfounded. I'm like, wow, what a stupid comment to make. Men simply aren't voting for Kamala Harris because she's a woman. How much percentage of the black male vote is not voting for Kamala Harris because she's a woman? It's probably a small percentage. What are the majority of black men online who are saying they're not voting for Kamala Harris on? Policy. Economists complaining about, oh, if Trump does mass deportation, we're going to lose a lot of tax dollars. No, we're not. Because most illegals don't pay taxes. They get paid under the table most of the time. And we can easily, with increased wages, we easily can get more Americans who pay more taxes. Like, make it make sense. We have homeless Americans out here, and you're trying to do all this incentive to get illegals to work? Why not utilize the population that you already have in the country? These Democrats don't make sense. And if you look throughout history, even though Republicans cut taxes, they always gain more tax revenue than Democrats who do increase taxes. So just because someone said, oh, we want to cut taxes doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get less taxes than you get before because of the laughter curve. If I tell you you get to keep 100% of your money, you're going to work a lot harder than someone saying, hey, I'm going to tax you at 100%. There's no incentive for you to work if we tax you at 100%. And this is where their logic starts crumbling. If increasing taxes actually increase the tax base, how come we cut taxes from 90% down to 70%? Then when Reagan came in, went from 70% to like 37%, where it's currently now. It's been hovering around here for a long time because there's a point of diminishing returns when you raise taxes. And when you decrease taxes, you give people more incentives to work harder to their full income potential. Therefore, you get a bigger pot to take taxes from. That's why Republican presidents tend to have more tax revenue than Democrat administrations and presidencies. The only one who breaks this trend is JFK, John F. Kennedy. Why? John F. Kennedy cut taxes. So cutting taxes doesn't necessarily mean lower tax revenue. But this is what the mainstream economists want you to believe. The same economists that redefined what a recession was. Since 2008, recession meant if you had 2 negative GDP quarters, which happened in 2022, you're in a recession. But for Biden and the Democrats, they redefined recession. And I'm saying, you still want to believe these same people that got you to hate a man you never personally met in your whole life? Donald Trump is causing divorces, causing mothers to disown their own children and their sons because of him. And nothing ever personally happened. Donald Trump has never done anything personally bad to them. But only because they listen to the media. And they think Donald Trump is the reason why we're divided in this country. Lie. The media is the biggest threat to America because the media is the one that demonizes Donald Trump. 87% negative coverage of somebody, 87%. And you only cover Kamala Harris positively. The only reason someone's voting for Kamala Harris is due to emotional reasons. And I'll stand by that statement.
They haven't met him, and the media is telling them to hate him. And I said this. I said, you're demonizing him, you're vilifying him, you're calling us garbage, you're calling him Hitler, you're calling him a fascist. And of course people are going to hate him. And I said, and by the way, you're writing all these articles condemning me coming into Washington, dismantling the pharmaceutical paradigm. Where are you getting your salary? From pharma.
Conflict of interest, right? And this is the same argument I make. I said the media has a conflict of interest because a lot of them, only 3.2% of journalists are Republicans. Massive majority of them are independents. But if I look at their donation numbers, I bet you they donate heavily to the Democratic Party. But for some reason, that's not transparent. And it's the argument I make all the time. There's a conflict of interest for the media to make you have a negative perception of Trump. And I think that's my closing argument there. is that you have to think for yourself. There's a reason why Slate, like news outlets like Slate and these left-wing news outlets are telling you that you shouldn't do your own research. You should listen to the experts. Do your own research to make it hard to build consensus. There's a reason why they want to build consensus, because they want to be able to have a centralized way to tell all the American people to do a certain thing. And they're mad that they're losing grip on that influence and on that power. But I digress. I think I made my point. I think you've seen the examples that I laid out here. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'd like to hear your angles, your feedback, what you guys think of my angle that I took with this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I appreciate you guys watching to the end of the video, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.